All right, we are live for another episode of Real Estate Junkies podcast. I am honored to host Daryl Owen, the mastermind behind one of the nation's leading real estate empires, from securing his first rental property at the age of 19 to establishing nationwide real estate executives, a powerhouse with nearly 1,000 sales executives. Daryl's journey epitomes a blend of vision, strategic innovation in empire building. In this episode, we will unpack the nuts and bolts of how Daryl scaled his real estate career to phenomenal heights, transforming from a top Century 21 sales associate to real estate titan. We will dive deep into how all his strategies, insights, visionary leadership that propelled Daryl to not just grow but exponentially scale in this competitive real estate landscape. And it doesn't end with just real estate. Owen Companies is a testimony to Daryl's diversified mastery, marketing, territory, capturing territory in education, technology, construction, and e-commerce. So dive into Daryl's journey. Daryl, welcome to the podcast, brother. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate that.
For sure. And let's dive right into it, okay? At age 19, right, you jumped into real estate game and never looked back. Can you share some of the, I guess, pivotal moment through this journey that set you on this trajectory of where you are now and how it fueled your scaling strategy?
Yeah, great question. It actually started when I was 14 years old and reading the newspaper, and I was reading about these two brothers that bought a duplex, and then they had sold that duplex and 1031 exchanged into 4 units. And then they had 1031 exchanged to 4 units and they eight, and they moved the eight and 20. And then at the time, there were about 34 doors. And I thought, gosh, that's what I want to do. I didn't come from money. My family, was what we would call middle class, right? My mom worked at the school district. My dad was a machinist in aerospace. And so we always had everything we needed and not everything I wanted. And I just had a very ambitious, I was very ambitious actually at a young age, if I should put it that way. And so when I read that paper, I thought that's just something I want to do. And it was always in my mind. I wanted to buy real estate. And I bought a course when I was about 16, 17 from Carlton Sheets. I don't know if this ages me or not. A lot of people don't know Carlton Sheets, but he was on Carlton Sheets. He was, he had those infomercials on the TV, right? And he was selling his real estate courses and how to buy distressed properties with no money down. And so I bought that course, and you learn a lot of weird, tricks with financing homes, like land wraps and seller carrybacks and all these things that didn't really apply a lot to what I was doing in California, but it gave me that next push. I had some business cards made. I had never bought a piece of real estate, and my business card said private investor. This is all before I was 18 years old. It was kind of funny. When I bought my first rental, it was in downtown Long Beach. It was a condo, one bedroom condo for like 185,000, which still doesn't sound that cheap compared to some homes across the country. But at the time, that was one of the cheapest pieces of real estate I could find within a 20-mile radius of where I lived in Orange County. And it was the only thing I could really qualify for. I think I had two or three options. At the time I was working at Papa John's Pizza, I was taking home a salary of like $675 a week. And my brother and I were able to partner and buy that first rental property. So it was that first investment I bought in downtown Long Beach, a one bedroom condo, that gave me that next push to getting my license, and wanting to just really learn more about the business, how to find real estate, how to buy real estate. I knew nothing, when I bought that first rental, and I made a lot of mistakes with that purchase too, actually, which we may or may have time to talk about later. But that's what got me into real estate. That's what attracted me to the licensing school, and what got me going to the classes was just to buy more real estate.
Wow. And very similar story. 2011, 2012. Well, I didn't buy. I wasn't as smart as you. I just watched YouTube videos. I guess like by 2012 you had the YouTube option for free, and I bought my first real estate foreclosure, flipped it within an hour for double the return.
Wow.
I was like, I'm out. I don't care what other opportunity is out there. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I
Well, you
was
did far
actually
better
in
than I did on your
e-commerce.
first one.
So yeah, yeah. So what were some of the, I guess, fundamental building blocks that allowed, nationwide real estate executives to not only just, establish themselves, grow, but flourish into
Mhm.
one of the nation's largest real
Yeah.
estate firms?
Yeah, it seems like a lifetime ago, but I founded my brokerage. So I got my license in 2005, six. That's when I went full time. I quit my job and I dropped out of college. And I became the top agent at my office. It was the number one Central 21 in the US at the time. And I was the number one agent there within 18 months at 21 years old. And I was there for about 5 years, roughly. I became a top agent in the Central 21 system in the US, just selling real estate as an individual realtor. At the time, in the culture of that office, like we couldn't have assistants, we couldn't build a team, so that was just me. I was doing my own TC work, everything, at the time, way back when. Um, and when I moved on, I ended up founding my company, Nationwide Real Estate, 2011. We had one agent that I brought over. It was a friend of mine when I started that brokerage, and we grew it to about 1,000 agents in 8 years. And as an independent firm, it was, I'm really grateful for that opportunity and everything that I learned doing it. And I know today, if I were to redo it again, I could do it in 2 years, which I love that skill set that I built. One of the things that early on helped me was I had a coach. Her name was Debbie DeGroat. A lot of people know her. Now she's with Forward Coaching and she's a partner with Ben Kinney at Place. And she was my coach early on. And what she helped me do was how to really look at my day as a CEO versus just a realtor, right? Like to graduate from being an agent to a business professional. And of course, that took many years and I'm not there yet, but I've learned a lot. And so early on, one of the first books she had me read was E-Myth. And E-Myth is
E-myth.
about systems. E-Myth, yeah. And so I read E-Myth and actually have an E-Myth real estate edition too, which I thought was interesting. I read that one later on. But the office that I came from, that Central 21 I mentioned, was a very systematic office. I mean, they had systems on how you make coffee, like the littlest things you can think of. And it reminded me of E-Myth. And so I really took that to heart. Now, when I worked at Papa John's and I bought that first rental property, I was actually a TGM at the time. So I was only 19 and I had a restaurant in Huntington Beach that I was a GM for. And I would train the franchisees in Southern California. That was one of my jobs. And so I did learn a lot about systems back then too. And with the franchise, systems are how you scale, right? Systems are how you create consistency and continuity across as many locations as you want. And I just always found the idea of systems beautiful because, and one of the things you learn in E-Myth is you want to be able to leave your business for 2 months to come back and have it be more successful when you get back. You don't want to have a business that once you leave and you're gone for a month and it's a total disaster. And the reason why that happens is systems. And the problem is the business becomes busier and bigger. And if you don't have the right systems in place, the right people systems, the right transaction systems, systems for everything, systems for making coffee, right? The littlest things you can think of has to have a system. If you don't have those systems, you come back to chaos. And the busier the business gets and the bigger the business gets, the more chaotic it becomes. And that's just no life to live,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for
So,
sure. And 1,000 executives, right? Sounds massive, massive, looks massive, walks massive, talks massive, right? So what's your secret? I mean, you can grow to, I can't even imagine going to 100, right? So you can grow to 1,000 without having a high performing culture. There is no way it's possible, right? So what's your secret formula behind assembling and nurturing a high performing team that, drives scalable success? And obviously systems the big part of it, but how do you create that high performing culture with that many agents nationwide?
yeah, that's a good question. And I don't even know if I have that figured out. But what we did, and I can relate to what I did because I made a lot of mistakes too. And I'm far from perfect and I still make mistakes every day. So for me, this is a lifelong journey of being better daily, right? I want to be a better version today than I was a month ago. Um, One of the things that we did though is we really had a culture based off productivity. And when you own brokerage, like in the brokerage world, there's three reasons why agents join your company. One of them is personality based, meaning like I love you and I want to work for you, right? Like that's personality. It's a personality based company, but the personality based company also becomes a bottleneck over time and stunts your growth, in my opinion. The second approach is commission. You're going to join you because you have a better commission fee structure. I'm going to save money joining you, or for whatever reason, the way that it's packaged, right? There's always money coming from somewhere to run a company, right? Money has to come from somewhere. You have to charge agents, even the 100% shops. It's not 100%. You're still paying a fee, right? There's still money coming in that you have to use to pay for your office space and your employees to run a business. But it's a commission structure that's enticing agents to join. Maybe it's a cap, maybe it's a low fee, whatever. And then the third is productivity based. And the productivity based culture is one that if you join us, you're going to do more business, right? And
Yeah.
so we were always a blend of productivity based and culture based, like the personality based. Like a lot of people wanted to come work with me because of my reputation and credibility in the market. And it was also, at the time when we were smaller, I think we only had 25, 30 agents. We were only top agents at the time. So our reputation before the school took off, and I'll explain that in a minute, was, we're more of top end, more veteran agents. The productivity and the per person production was substantially higher at the time. I was selling about 8, 9 homes a month just as an individual. Now I had to do that though, because I had put all my money into the business, starting the brokerage. I had no money. And so I had to sell to survive and get out of that hole that I was in. Right. And so at that time, being the CEO and trying to recruit and also doing the accounting and cleaning the dishes in the office and making sure the bathroom was stocked and making sure the receptionist's phone was being answered, I had to do all that myself and still sell real estate. And so it was a 7-day work week for years at a time when I just had my firstborn. My first son was born at that same time, same month that I started the company. And so it was challenging for sure.
Bro, this is like someone is reading my own autobiography. And I'm sure a lot of agents and brokers who are looking to grow a team and a brokerage can relate to this. Like, what the heck? Like, how is this guy know all this stuff? Like, that's happening with me. So from going from dabbling into real estate investment, trying to make some money, to getting into sales, becoming a top performer, top sales associate at Century 21, then founding your own company, being the CEO, right? How has, and you have mentioned, and I really appreciate the humbleness that you bring to the table. Like, I have made a lot of mistakes. How have you, I guess, like, how do you see your approach of scaling businesses evolve over the years with all the mistakes that you have made?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So if I were to do it all over again, yeah. If I were to do it all over again, I hate to drill in on the thing that's boring, because it is, but the systems is where it starts. And so I would build out one, what do I want my culture to look like? What is the value proposition? Like, what is it that we do that's different or better than anybody else? I'd really put some time into that. I don't want to recreate the same thing that already exists. And I'll share my thoughts on this industry too. In fact, I'm a bit contrary to what most people expect me to say when it comes to brokerage ownership, and what I would do differently too. Back then, when I started the company, and this is purely the financial component to it, but when I founded the brokerage, my investment vehicles and what I was reinvesting in was more businesses, and I grew 9 different companies at the time. And that's not the wrong way to do it by any means. Most of the wealth that we can create, we can do it fastest through business. But the business is highly cyclical, and there's a lot more risk. And so the problem is if you're investing all of your money like I did growing your companies, and you're not reinvesting into some of the assets like real estate, in those companies, maybe, there's always a lifespan. I mean, what companies can you name right now that are still in business after 100 years, right? Like, business has to constantly evolve. And looking at Blockbuster versus Netflix, right? And what Blockbuster could have done to remain in business, or companies like Kodak or Mervyn's, like all these businesses that were around forever that are no longer in business now, right? It's hard. It's hard to build a business and keep it sustainable long term. Like, the idea with businesses, and this is the challenge, is you want to build it, make it incredible, and sell it. Or you need to be very careful, And so I just didn't invest enough in real estate as I was growing those businesses. I was putting millions and millions back into the companies to grow them. And the real estate brokerage industry is not a wealth business. There are big companies that have sold for a nice ticket price, but the margins aren't very good. And you're not going to get wealthy building a brokerage and selling it. What you will get wealthy doing, though, is making lots of money from the brokerage. And if it's ran right, the cash flow can be really healthy. And I explain how. And then you need to invest that in your real estate and grow that portfolio. And so that's one thing that I would do a little bit differently, because it definitely stunted my growth in my real estate portfolio for many years, because I was so focused on acquiring more businesses and growing the business, And I was just a bit short-sighted on what that would look like 10 years later, right? And so that was a tough challenge. Now, the brokerage industry, though, is super healthy if you have the right ancillary opportunities. And so in our state, California, like escrow is a really big component to brokerage, right? There's really no point owning a brokerage if you don't have escrow and if you don't have mortgage, because your margins are just not very good. And most brokerages, 90% lose money. They're just not a profit center anymore, right? With the race to the bottom commission structures that we have. And so if I were to do it all over again, I wouldn't start brokerage, to answer your question. And I believe teams are the next generation brokerage business model. And because teams bring a lot more value to the agents on the teams do more productivity on the teams. The agents are much richer working on teams, and they bring much better service to the clients. And so that's why I've invested into teams now versus just brokerage, because I believe the teams are what brokerages want to be, but they just can't. And the reason why they can't, I could talk about it on a whole nother podcast about the lack of resources you have as a brokerage. Fundamentally provide what agents need to be truly successful as a brokerage. It's just hard to do with what you charge.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we have seen that evolvement from brokerages running like teams over the recent years. I would say this is probably pretty new, 5 years, where brokerages, small brokerages start running like big teams, and big brokerages start having like small teams within the brokerage and operating those teams like teams. And honestly, in my opinion, traditional brokerage model has always been broken, right? We just have been just patching it left, right, trying to make it work, right? And then the revolving door that happens in a brokerage, it's inevitable, right? That's why this necessary evolution to brokers running like teams, if people wake up. And it's funny that the words that you just said in the answer to that question was exactly what I was talking to. I consult a lot of brokerages, small brokerages, independent brokerages, part of my consulting business. And I was talking to someone who has 10 agents in his brokerage, who's basically getting set up, has ambition for scaling, becoming a brokerage like EXP, but he doesn't want to be part of a big brand brokerage. So it's like, okay, here is my options, and it's kind of laying out like everything that he had considered. And he was like, okay, Remax approached me, KW approached me, and they all, because of our production with such a small brokerage, they all want me to buy into a franchise. But I know, and he is saying this, like, I know franchise would be the death of my growth. I know a lot of my friends are franchise owners here, and they don't make any, like, if they make even less money than when they were individually producing, selling houses, right? So I don't want to get into that. I want growth. I want healthy growth. I don't want revolving doors. I'm like, look, you're basically answering your own questions. You don't even need me. But he was at a point like, hey, I'm willing to pay you a hefty amount of money for you to help me build something like X, right? So I'm like, look,
Yeah.
you can either recreate the wheel, or you can just model a wheel that's already there. You don't have to be fancy about what wheel you run on. You just have to focus on how far you can go, right? And I think that's where a lot of owners get so attached to like their core values, which is very important, but the ownership of it, right? Like, hey, I want to own whatever it is. I don't want no one to meddle into my growth, meddle into how I operate, right? And that mindset is there, but that a lot of times, yes, it is true that you would have some restrictions, right, in your business when you align yourself with companies like EXP or any other brokerage. But at the same time, for a lot of people, that becomes the biggest hurdle in their growth because, like you mentioned, they spend thousands, if not millions of dollars trying to build a brand, trying to get through that initial hurdle of growth, of like getting traction in the marketplace, right? Being, establishing that brand authority for people to even agents to get attracted. Now, you have branched into different sectors of real estate industry, right? Beyond just real estate sales. How has that diversification contributed to scaling your primary real estate business?
Good question. Yeah. So those businesses, some came out of necessity and some were passion projects and some were just what you need to do if you're going to be in brokerage to justify the liability of having the brokerage. Like brokerage ownership, if it's ran right and you really protect your margins, you don't give in to every agent that wants a commission raise and you kind of hold the line on here's our model and you have to conform to it. And you just got to find ways to provide more value to the agents as much as you can. In my experience, you'll maybe net a profit of about $1,000 per agent per year, right? So if you have 30 agents, you're probably going to make about 30,000 a year. You have 50 agents, 50,000, 100 agents, 100,000, and that gets harder as the agent count grows because you need more resources to justify that and to keep up with that demand, right? At the time we were about 1,000 agents, the brokers is netting 800,000 a year. The escrow we had was netting over $1 million. So it was, the economics, but then you're constantly getting sued, the litigation that you have with running a business of that size, plus 400,000, 500,000 a month in overhead just to make ends meet, just to pay your office leases and your payroll and insurance and all those things that come along with owning the company. It's this, to make that kind of money, it's hard to justify, right? And so when people are looking at that opportunity of, should I get into brokerage ownership or should I build a team or what should I do to set up my business structures in the right way? If you're going to get in ownership, there's a lot of people that do kill it in brokerage ownership, right? So it's not completely a dead business, but it's just much different and harder than it used to be. And you got to own those ancillaries. And the way that I do own ancillaries is through really healthy partnerships. Because when it comes to scaling, your time is finite. And so partnerships, sometimes they don't work out. And I've had some that didn't. I bought a mortgage company. It was a terrible partnership. I closed it. And it's okay. That was a learning experience. But and we lost a lot of money through that process, right? But most of my partnerships have yielded really great businesses. And when you have, key partners, especially managing partners, people that are dedicated to running just that business, I found that when people have their own blood, sweat, and tears in the business like I do, and they care as much as I do, they work in the business differently than somebody would when they're just getting a salary. You know what I mean? And so one of the ways we've done it is through really good partnerships.
Yeah, I mean, collaboration always beats competition, right? And believe it or not, that was my end conversation with this broker that I was consulting. I said, hey, look, you could pay me $50,000 and I will just set you up for all the systems and processes you need for the level you're trying to scale, trying to open 4 different offices in the same state, and you want to go into all 50 states eventually. But that journey you're about to go on, it's not going to be as pretty as you think it is, right? The best way outcome here is you continue to do partnership rather than you wanting to just open up these brick and mortar offices and take on all those liability yourself, right? So
Especially
every
with,
scaling
I don't know,
journey. Yeah.
I don't know how big
Go
his
ahead.
business is, but when I went through that franchise route, right, we were approached by national franchises, and at the time, because my royalties, I always charge a 5% override on the gross commission, similar to a royalty, but then went back to the corporate office to run the back and all of the locations. Is how we structured it to streamline inefficiencies and kind of run the margins in every location better. And so the way we structured it was kind of ideally set up as a franchise too. And so we were approached by national brands, and I found that there's only a couple incentives. And what's nice is if you do affiliate and you already have a lot of gross commission your company generates, at the time we're about 20 million a year, you can get a nice, healthy, fat check to affiliate with them, usually, right? The market's a little different right now, but when the market's good and there's a lot of money going around, the stock price is healthy, you can, at the time I was like 1.7 million is what I was offered to affiliate with one of those brands. And that was a hard, thing to turn down, but I did ultimately. And it's not that I couldn't help but grow. The second reason why you might do that, aside from the upfront cash, and by the way, you're just giving away your future cash, right? Like I'm already getting that royalty, 700,000 a year. So I'm essentially just giving it away for it up front today. Well, there's pros and cons of that. What can you do with 1.7 million? Can you triple it now? Exactly. The other incentive, though, when you're affiliating with those larger brands is that they'll set up more acquisition opportunities for you because they kind of have a built-in succession plan for everyone, right? And so they'll help you acquire more locations so you can grow your firm bigger. but it doesn't necessarily make each independent firm or each individual office better, right? And because now you're sacrificing a lot of cash flow that you had at one point that you no longer have because you're paying to be with the brand. Now, there's a lot of other incentives I found too with, well, if you're with this brand, can you recruit easier? Probably in some cases. I know there were some brands that would be easier to recruit to than ours because we were an independent brand. Sometimes we'd hear, well, I've never heard of you. Of course, you're going to get that. And then we know the saying is, well, how many of your clients actually work with you because of your brand or the logo on your business card? I worked at Central 21 5 years. In fact, I had people tell me, oh, you're with Central 21. I'd never work with them because they had a bad experience with another Central 21 agent completely unrelated to me or my office. So there's good and bad that comes along with it, right? But you do get that credibility and that brand recognition, which sometimes could help, and it could help you with recruitment. The second thing I learned with recruitment when you own offices is be very careful about the address on your business cards. You know, there's cities in my markets of Orange and LA County that are easy to recruit to, and there's cities that are really difficult to recruit to because agents care about what the address city says on the business card. So if you're in Newport Beach, it's a lot easier to recruit. If you're in Irvine, it's a lot easier to recruit. But if you're in Laguna Woods, it's not easy to recruit because they don't want a Laguna Woods address on their business cards. They want Irvine, they want Newport, they want the glitz and the glamour, or the glamour, excuse me, right? So that was another hard lesson to learn that I didn't anticipate. I just thought I could open anywhere, no problem, right?
Yeah. And, every scaling journey, right? Every scaling story faces hurdles, right? From $20 million in GCI a year, right? Could you tell us about any significant challenges? Obviously, faced a lot of them, but what are the big challenges that you faced when it comes to scaling, right? And what innovations, what out of the box things have you implemented to overcome them?
Great question. One of the things that I found most challenging when I started to experience it for the first time were the lawsuits. And lawsuits can be scary. Now, getting
Like
sued is a part of business.
like bills, right? Like ting, ting, another lawsuit.
Yeah, I got to the point to where at the time it was kind of funny because when I had set up my corporation the very first time, I put my mom on there as a servicing agent. Like, if there's anything for the corporation needed to be serviced and delivered, it would go to my mom's address, right? I'm like, oh, she's always really good with her mail. Nothing ever gets missed. I don't know if I'm going to be in this office location that long. And then over time, she kept getting served these lawsuits. And I was like, I never anticipated this,
Like,
And
what are
so it
you
was
doing
another
out
lawsuit.
there? Are
It was
you
another
robbing
lawsuit.
people?
Yeah, exactly. But in real estate, it's a litigious business. So there's two types of lawsuits. There's the transactional lawsuits; those are normal. You have E&O for that. We work with Real Estate Risk Management and Laura Peterson, so they mitigate a lot of those things for us, and they help us kind of resolve them before they need to go to insurance. Because there's always mistakes. People are human, right? And even if the agents didn't make a mistake and they were perfect, houses have issues, clients get upset. So that's just part of how this business works. And so you just need to have the right insurance and protocols in place, the right compliance, making sure that you have every file being reviewed thoroughly by staff and checking off these files to make sure they're done correctly and the agents are doing the right job with the paperwork and that they don't get paid unless everything's in, right? Like that's, those types of policies are important. The second type of lawsuit and what I really struggled with was the stuff that you just deal with when you become bigger. You become more of a target as your company grows. And that was a little hard. Like one of the things that we dealt with that cost us 4 years and about $500,000, mostly in legal fees, was a class action. Coldwell Banker, thank you, Coldwell, had settled the class action for them on one of the agents claiming he was an employee and he should have been paid for meal breaks and all this other stuff. And they ended up settling that, but it created some case law. And California was dealing with this, ABC test and what an agent is. Are realtors really independent contractors? Or are they really employees, right? And there was a lot of pressure to make real estate agents employees, and they would have to get paid an hourly rate, which would completely change our entire compensation as an industry. And it wouldn't be good for the agents, but I had one agent who worked for one of my Hollywood offices for about a month, and she did kind of the same thing. And that labor attorney used that case law against us, and we ended up becoming a target for a class action that ended up wasting many, many years and much money to settle, and for nothing for an agent who worked for us for a month, right? So it's those types of things that can really take the wind out of your sails. And we dealt with lots of deals and issues like that over the last decade of building the business. And that's disheartening because you put so much work and money and just passion into what you're trying to build. And people are just always going to be trying to take it away from you. And so, you can get angry or you can get upset or you can just throw in the towel and not do it. But the reality is life is short, so we might as well
Yeah.
just go big and have fun with it and just recognize this is just the cost of doing business. And you would just need to make sure you're making enough money to justify those expenses if they come up.
So how do you offset? Obviously, regardless of how you do it, right? Whether as an independent agent, independent broker, franchise broker, right? Affiliate broker. How are you offsetting? I guess the stuff that you faced back then. Right now, what are you guys doing that is kind of like keeping that off your table as much as possible? How do you
Yeah,
offset that level of, I guess, liability, right? When growing your business at that level.
that's a good question. So those things, some of those things are just going to inevitably happen, no matter how great you are and how perfect you are with your systems. But a lot can be mitigated, and that's with a strong culture and leadership. And that the hardest thing to do sometimes is to have a firm line, because we all want to be good people and we want to be nice to other people, right? But in leadership, you have to make hard decisions. You have to take bold
Yeah.
action sometimes, and that bold action is sometimes not popular. It's sometimes not loved, and you're going to have to let people go, right, to build a business. The people that got you from 1 year to year 3 are not the same people that's going to get you from year 5 to 10 sometimes, and that sometimes is a hard pill
Mm.
to swallow. And so, if you're really in the business to build a big business, you got to be willing to move on from certain
Yeah,
people. You got to be
for
willing,
sure.
and it's not the case in all cases, but that definitely comes up. You got to be willing to make tough
Mm.
decisions and lose friends or people that you really care about, and you want to do that in the most human way possible. And doing that in a human way is not always easy for everyone. There's a reason why, and I hate to say it, and I'm not like this at all. I have a lot of empathy, and this is probably the biggest challenge I had. But there's a reason why most of the CEOs of the largest companies in the world are sociopaths, right? Like, because you have to be able to make tough decisions, and it's hard to do sometimes. That's the truth. And you notice I
Yeah,
say things
I would say
probably that are a bit
psychopaths.
unpopular.
I would say psychopaths in a healthy context, right? And
That's right.
let's talk about technology, right? Today's tech-driven world, right? I could not imagine, right, scaling to the level that you have scaled without integration of technology. So I guess what technologies or how has integrating technology been instrumental for your scaling and for your growth?
Yeah, good question. So we always wanted to look at ways. I mean, through COVID, everything changed from our technology offering, right? Like we had to go real virtual, real fast. But prior to COVID, we were building out to LMS, learning management system. We were trying to integrate more and more virtual training into what we did because that's more on demand. Agents can do the training at home. They could do training, when they're on the road. We had a lot of part-time agents at the time too, because our school, which was one of our other companies, grew to a level to where it was producing so many hires for us. But there were newer agents, and a lot of them that are newer are not full-time agents, so they're starting out as part-time with the goal of going full-time if they can. And so we want to try to get them dialed in and trained in a way where they can't be at the office for a sales meeting on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. because they have a full-time job during the week. And so we really leaned into building and scaling technology and training online and virtual classes and things like that. The transaction management, this is dating us now, but early on when I founded the brokerage, the files were done by paper, right? Like they really were. And so now, like doing things by paper is unimaginable, and we would leverage companies like SkySlope for that, right? Like where you want to have, and there's Dot Loop where you have your transactions, they live virtually, and you
Yeah,
want to
Brokerman,
leverage.
dot whatever it is. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Integrating, we had integrations with our QuickBooks Online into our accounting, into our commission distributions. We really built out HubSpot in a big way. HubSpot became the backbone of our organization in our school. We actually built it out in a way that was very customized and automated for how we ran our school, how we ran the licensing school, how we managed our brokerage, our HR, our files. We leveraged a CRM for recruitment. So we just had a lot of different pieces, and it was challenging because sometimes you have so many different tech components and you're trying to duct tape them all together to make them work. And there's not a solution that's a one size fits all in most cases, right? HubSpot is probably one that you probably could mold, but it takes a lot of time and work to get it to where you need it to be.
Yeah.
And then of course you got things like Salesforce, but those are extremely expensive to mold. And you got to hire really expensive people to build them out to your needs,
Yeah.
specific needs. Once it's built out, it's good, but we just never wanted to make that investment. We tried to find things that we felt that had, a really nice user interface, a UI, and like it was easy to use. It was comprehensive. The learning curve wasn't too
Yeah.
hard for our people. Pretty technology, if you will, right? And then how we could zap them together. And we use Zapier a lot, integrate different things together. We built a digital sales board system that was customizable for our brokerage. And so, you probably know back in the day, maybe a lot of offices still do that. They have the big whiteboard where you write up your sale and then ring the bell, right? Like that's how we always did it. Well, we made that virtual. So when agents had a new transaction, a new listing or a new pending, they put it into our desktop.
Yeah.
You could do it virtually, and then
Yeah.
it would pop off in the office, and Snoop Dogg would be dancing on the office screen, and it'd have fireworks going off. And then Daryl got a new sale today, and so then the sales board was digital, but then that automatically integrated into our SkySlope and automatically integrated into the transaction management and broker compliance department. So we just started building things out like that to streamline what we were doing, make it a little bit more fun and have fun with it.
Yeah, and it's everything that you have said. I think even at a small level brokerage, right? It's actually more important for small brokerages, small teams to leverage these technologies than the big ones, right? Uh, there is a lot of big brokerages out there don't even leverage any tech, right? Like I talk to brokerages, 100 agents in their brokerage, and they don't even provide a CRM, right? They don't even provide electronic signature, document management, none of it, right? They're still operating at that level and they're making it work. But I believe if you are a small brokerage, small team, and you leverage technology at the level that it's available right now, right? It doesn't take a lot. Like the journey that you have been through integrating technology back then, it was much harder. 10 years ago, it was much harder than it is today. Easier is it is today, right? So, real estate agents and brokers who are aiming to scale, I guess, when it comes to growth phase, right? What metrics should they focus on to measure and drive their growth effectively?
That's a great question. So we're talking about ownership teams, right? Brokerage.
Yeah.
So there's only a couple things that really matter, and this is hard for me, a systems guy, because I want to dive in and build. I want to dive in to make the systems. But the reality is there's only a few things that we really need to do in leadership that matter, that move the needle. The first is I need to bring in new production. I need to recruit production, right? And so recruitment can be done in lots of ways. You can do co-op, call the market, every agent you co-op with, invite them out for coffee and try to build a relationship. And the more relationships you build over time, eventually some of them are unhappy. You catch them at the right time and they're ready to make a move, and maybe you're there to catch them, right? Like that's one thing to do. The second is through EXP Realty. Yes, I was just looking at the chat there.
Someone
Yeah.
actually asked me on like, who are you guys part of? Like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for those viewers who don't know, we recently merged our brokerages with the largest teams that have just merged into EXP from the brokerage. And so I actually talked candidly earlier in this podcast about what are my thoughts on the brokerage industry, the ownership side of brokerage, and where I feel the next gen brokerage model is, and it's teams. And that's because teams just bring a tremendous amount of value to the agents on the teams and to the clients. And so, but back to your point, to the system. So the KPIs and things you focus on is I need to bring in more talent. I need to recruit. And the second thing is I need to keep the recruits. That's retention. And so we want to look at the attrition rates. We want to look at what is our turnover out of every hire we get, what are the gross for the month, and what are the nets, right? So the two most important things you can track if you're going to be in leadership or hire leadership is how many people did we hire this month, and how many people left, and how many people did we net for the month. And that net needs to be positive, not negative. So if you hired 4 and you lost 2, your net's 2. Okay, that's not terrible, but I want to see a net 8. I want to see a net 5. I want to see healthy nets. And so if you're hiring a lot of people and losing lots of people, we need to address the retention problem. And that's usually just a value issue. That's usually there's a disparity between what you're charging and what the agents think they get. And there's lots of layers in between on how you can fix that. And then the second way to recruit is through something like we did. We built a licensing school. It became one of the largest in California. I still have over 10,000 students in the school. And that's something that every hire that we have through the school is going through our teams, or they're going to be joining EXP. And so, and that provides
even 10%
yeah.
conversion, 1,000 agents.
Yeah, we'll probably grow our EXP down the line. Right now we're at several hundred, obviously hundreds because of the merger, but after, I don't know, in the next 2-3 years, we'll be way over 2,000, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Amazing. And what's happening in these ecosystems? A lot of people don't see it from the outside, right? I was at EXPCon. That's how I saw you and got to know you, right, in your journey, and that's how I got you on this podcast, right? So even the collaboration factor is amazing, right? But other than that, I would have never knew who Daryl Owen was, right? Not saying that you're not famous. I'm sure you're famous in your sphere. But look, mega teams. What mega teams are doing in companies like EXP, and I'm not saying it's not happening in other companies, are like far surpassing like the top franchise offices in these like top nationwide franchise brokerages, and that baffles, like, how are people not seeing this? You guys need to come look. So
yeah
it's always evolving. Where you were 5 years ago, where you were 10 years ago, with your mindset even, is completely different. How I know it's different is because you went from being an individual agent to a brokerage owner to where you are like merging now with a brokerage like EXP, right? So what do you see the most significant opportunity for agents, brokers, team leaders? I'm not talking about individual agent level, people who are trying to grow like you have, right? What would be the most significant opportunity for them who are looking to scale in the next 5 years?
Yeah, great question. So for me, I want to leverage a brokerage that has the tools, resources, and that provides that umbrella and liability coverage like EXP, right? Because I could focus on the business and working in it, or I could work on it. And the reality is I spent a decade building the model, but right now I think my time is much better leveraged if I just execute on a model. And so for the brokerage, I want to supplement the brokerage with EXP. I got the downline opportunities, the wealth and revenue share opportunities, the stock opportunities, and I created that for my people too. And so as much as I hire, I want to help them hire too. And then we all win together. So I love the concept. And because it's not a distraction in mind share, I need to focus on brokerage ownership now and being CEO of that company. I want to be the CEO of what I feel is the next gen brokerage model, and that's teams. And that's why I partner with Place. And that's, again, Place is my partnership for my team. And what they do is they provide the tools and resources that teams really need to scale fast. And so I'm going to grow my brokerage to $1 billion, or my team is, we're about 100 million now. We're going to grow to about 10 times that in the next 2 years using the Place's tools and resources. What I love about Place is they have an IPO target in the next 3 to 4 years. And so you can earn and build and grow a lot of stock within Place over the next 3 to 4 years that will have an exponential growth when we go public the next 3 to 4 years too. So if anybody has any questions about Place, let me know, and I'll explain why we did that. But because I can get the team in 2 years where I could do it on my own in 10, right? And so that's a lot of opportunity I can create for my people at the same time. And that's why I made that decision to partner with them. And when you look at what a team can do for agents, just the culture, the mentorship, the coaching, the leads, the systems, we give the agents their time back. Agents on the team, it's like you have your own assistant. We handle the marketing, we handle the pendings, we handle everything. So they can just focus on the 5 things that matter most. And that's, I need to be face-to-face. I need to be talking to my clients, making calls, doing appointments, presentations, open houses, showings, writing offers. So like, that's all they should be spending their time on. And that's why I could take somebody who's maybe struggling to do 12 deals a year and put them into 30 deals a year and do it within the first 12 months of being on the team. And they just take home a lot more money that way. And they have a lot more freedom and mind share and peace back because they don't have to work 7 days a week to do 3 times the business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the biggest hurdle when it comes to the shift that you have made with the brokers, I have very less EXP conversations majority of the time, unless there is a need to. But I'm consulting brokers, and they're like, "Oh, I want to build something like this and like that." And usually, in my mind, I'm like, "Why are you not with EXP?" But I don't say that. But I see that the biggest hurdle is like going from ownership of a brokerage, having whatever amount it is, $1 million, 4, 5, 6, $7 million in revenue coming in, and it's all yours. The whole pie is yours, right? Going from that to like, okay, giving up 20%, 25% upfront, you always get it back, right? But like that whole concept doesn't even like you can't even these people can't even fathom, right? Like brokerages who have at least a significant amount of revenue coming in every year, right? For them, it's just like this is all mine. Why would I give it up, right? And of course, you explained that it's because you want to leverage that umbrella liability. You want to offset that liability, which was one of your biggest hurdles scaling, right? So, what would you say? I guess what would your golden piece of advice? Because you have done it. You have overcame that hurdle and you're part of this family now, right? So what was it like? What made you give that up when you had your own whole pie? Why are you giving up your a piece of your pie up to EXP and Place?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it was a little bit of an identity crisis early on. I'm not going to lie, losing that, like what I was in my mind as the owner and the CEO of a larger company. And I still have my 7 other companies in real estate that I still own today. But to make that transition, and the reason why we ultimately decided, and I did decide that this is the right move for me, is because of my passion. I just lost passion doing what I was doing on the brokerage side. I didn't have a tremendous amount of influence on the agents' lives, and it just became a machine of recruitment, and it was a revolving door. And I just wasn't into it anymore. It just wasn't what I was excited to get out of bed to do anymore. And when I was working on the team, I started building the team, and we started that 3 years ago. I just got my passion back. I was in the trenches with them, and I was having a massive impact on people's lives. And when I look back in 10, 20, 30 years, I'm not going to care about how many buildings I own or how much cash I have in the bank or how much real estate I own. I'm going to care about the lives that I had an impact on. And I want to look back thinking, gosh, look at how many people I've helped grow their wealth and become millionaires and build these amazing lives and put their kids through amazing schools and live in amazing places and take amazing vacations. Like these are the things that they're deserving of. And I was able to play a really big role in helping people get there. And so that stuff excites me, not, how many people can I recruit and how many people did I lose this month? Right. It's just a completely different business model. And that's why I love what I do now. And I was just kind of depressed with what I was doing before. I was burnt out and I just wasn't passionate about it. And so as much as it was hard to let go of that identity of what I thought I was before, what I do now is actually what I'm excited to do. And I love building things, and I love building things with people, and I want to be a part of their success, and I want to be a part of helping them build something special. And so we used to have a saying in my brokerage early on, like, you may give up on your goals and dreams, but we never will. Right. And that stopped being true at
Yeah.
one point. Right. It just stopped being true because of the turnover. Right. Like the turnover you have in
Because
brokerage.
you knew they're gonna
Yeah,
leave, and you still recruited them. And
exactly. Yes. And it's
you
something
know
you get
they're
used
not
to,
cut
but
out,
it's
right?
hard.
You told them,
You're like,
oh, you
yeah,
can
how could you
do
leave me?
it. Everyone can do it.
Yeah. But on the team, it's just different. The retention, the average agent stays many, many years in the team. There's not a lot of turnover on the team. And because the value is so much more tremendous on the team. And of course, you're always
Yeah.
going to have people leave and move, right? Because life happens. People get divorced, people have babies, people die. Like that's unfortunate. I've had
Mhm.
people pass
Yeah.
away on my team. That's terrible. Like that just sucks.
Wow.
And so it's just life. But the reality is that I get excited because I can have a lot of I'm not doing the work for them, right? Like it's their journey, but I get to be a part of that journey with them in a much bigger way than I could in the brokerage level. And that's just what I love.
Yeah. 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 And again, like everything you just said is like I don't have an autobiography, but if I had one, it's just like you just stole a section of it and you said it. And when I started my team
We're
3 years
kindred
ago,
spirits.
when I started my team 3 years ago, first year, actually first 3 months, I recruited 16 agents. I knew the game. Like hey, the name of the game is mass recruit. Whatever sticks stays, and whatever doesn't stick doesn't stay, right? And we sold
Yeah.
120 houses. We with me not being in production at all, like running a small team, but that experience was so heart wrenching to me. And I'm the type of person, I don't have to run a 5K marathon to understand I have the wrong shoes on, right? I just have to like take few steps to figure out like, hey, these shoes are not fitting me, right? It's hurting, right? So I right away switched to a mini team model, right? Like micro team model. And I read the book. It's called Top Grading for Salespeople. I don't know if you ever heard of that book. It basically talks about, instead of like trying to increase your sell, which is like traditional brokerage model, trying to increase your sell, you just increase the number of agents. You increase the quality of agents with minimal numbers. That doesn't hurt your operation. That doesn't overburden you, right? So that book truly like opened my eyes to it. And with the blessing of EXP, it's been about year and a half. I run a team completely remotely. 6 agents in my team, 19 agents in my downline, now 38 agents in my coaching platform. Actually, that number just jumped to 65 in a month. But it's just like truly find passion in having that connection. We do group coaching calls every single day. We do every single agent that's in my coaching platform and that's in my front line in EXP, and my team members get a monthly one-on-one call with me. And if I were to run a brick and mortar, I would not have time for that. There is no way. There's just no. If you have to run an operation like that, even with people systems and all the other systems, you just don't have. Forget about passion, right? Just the bandwidth, the capacity to give that much time to your people. And when I was running a real estate business, I was able to give that much time to my people. And business, I would be honest. All right, there we go. I think we are back. Okay, we had
There you are.
but coming back to what I was saying is that we when you're running a brick and mortar big operation, it's almost impossible for you to have the bandwidth and capacity to give that much time to your people. And I have always found passion in being a people person. I was never a people person when I first started, but that's who I transformed to. And I find value. I find that those are my core values now, is that I find, I guess, like fulfillment in being part of people's lives, helping them be successful, helping them make more money, live more, have a better lifestyle for themselves and for their families, and in turn turning them into givers just like I am, right? And running a operation at that level, 1,000 agents, big brokerage, you just don't have the bandwidth at all, right? So I am so thankful for platforms like EXP that allows me. And that's another thing, I guess, like we can learn from each other, is now whenever I get an agent, first of all, my door is closed all the time. We don't recruit into our team. And I have within the team, I have a roadmap, 2-year roadmap of like whoever gets in the team there. I make it very clear, like you have 2 years to get out of the team. I mean, you want to stay, it's fine, but I will go take you through in the next 2 years a process where you would be able to establish a brand, an authority, and business for yourself, for you to be an independent agent. You want to run a team, I'll even teach you that in these 2 years. You want to open up a brokerage, I'll even teach you that. And after that 2 years, thanks to EXP, they can become an independent agent and still be in our downline, still have access to us as much as they have access to everything else now, being part of the team. So Daryl, again, I appreciate you taking the time out, having this conversation with us. If you could offer one golden piece of advice to real estate professionals, now I'm talking about the individual agents, right? But that's who you were one time, and you have evolved into who you are today, right? So let's just say, let's talk about 10 years in the past, 15 years in the past. What golden piece of advice would you give yourself that could be eye-opening for some of these professionals, real estate agents getting into the business now, for growth, exponential growth? What would that be?
Good question. So, coming from the agent perspective, like if I was to go back in time and talk to myself 15 years ago, if I was to give myself one piece of advice, I'd probably say focus on not the ego base of the business, And it's easy. It's an easy trap to fall into. And the brokerage is really ego based. It's an ego based business. It's all about production. It's all about gross revenue, gross commission, but it's not about profit. And the reality is you need profit to build the life you want to build. And so I would really keep profit a center focus on what I'm trying to accomplish and not get into the wrong businesses just to look good, right? And to have the stats and the agent
Yeah.
count and the high production, but to build a life that you want to build, and just to kind of sum that up based off our discussion today is, agents, they seem to move businesses and companies a lot. And the mind share that it takes to move a business, it takes about 6 months of adjustment. And when I left Central 21 and moved to Prudential for about 9 months, it cost me about 6 months. It just takes time to readjust your business model and readjust your marketing and readjust everything that you're doing when you change companies. And so many agents are playing musical chairs, moving offices and changing companies because they get a slightly better split or a slightly better deal, and or they just think, "Gosh, I'm not doing the production I want to do here, so I need to maybe make a change." The reality is if you're not making production here, you're not going to make production anywhere until you change what you need to change in you. And that's your habits, your routines, and what you do every day to build your business. It really doesn't matter what brand you have on your business card. You're going to be successful or not successful because of you. And so I think it's a huge trap we fall into. And the incentives that we look at, right, at these other businesses are attractive sometimes. Man, they hurt us in so many ways too. So I would say focus on what you're doing on building your business, focus on your profit, focus on your margins, and look at what do I need to do every day. Like if there's this one thing that really moves my business forward, what's the one thing that I have to get in every day to make sure that I'm executing on my vision that's going to build my life and do that one thing no matter what, protect that one thing no matter what, schedule and time block it and batch it in every day for the week, Monday through Friday, no matter what, and don't let anybody else interrupt that time, and do the thing you need to do so that you can have the power and create the life that you want to create. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I see that people struggle with, and the one thing I would want to really iron in myself too.
That is golden, golden. I mean, I can't, give you enough props for this advice because I see on a daily, not daily, hourly, how agents, brokers, team leaders running themselves to ruins because of this image, right? The self image, the outer image, the external image, like, oh, I'm part of this group and this company and that company, while it's hurting their pockets to begin with, but at the same time, it's not like instant gratification thing, like instant profit thing. It's more about long-term growth. They're hurting that more than anything, right? Because of the self-ego, because of the collective ego, whatever it might be, in my opinion, you got to do what's good for you, right? Don't do it based on what others are doing. And we the way we are growing our coaching business is infiltrating Facebook groups. There is no secret to that. People who follow me, they see me in we target 100 Facebook groups to, that are, flooded with agents and brokers. And there are conversations like this happening on a daily basis where we see agents are asking, which brokerage is good to join? And then there's a bunch of people coming in and like giving them advice, like more like poison, right? Without asking. No one's asking, what do you need? Right? No one's asking what's good for you. Everyone's like, oh, EXP, whatever. I don't care if someone said EXP. EXP is not for everyone. That's the truth. Not just EXP. Not all brokerages are not for everyone. It's what problem do you have in your business right now? What do you need solving right now? And what do you need to achieve your goals is what fills that gap, nothing else. No amount of brand, no amount of cloud-based or cloud. It's there's another funny thing I said. It's either cloud-based now or clout-based. Cloud-based or cloud. But
That's
anyway,
funny.
again, it's been amazing time. I feel like I could talk to you for days. When this episode comes out, definitely put you on everywhere on social media and tag you. And I cannot wait to see what you do with the platform, how you grow, and how you make an impact in the industry, because I could see it in you, the passion that you have. So again, thanks for your time. It's been an amazing time. And for those of you listening in, and those of you who are listening in the podcast later, this is the time right now for you to pivot. This is not a time to wait for the market to get better. We are in no place to be on the sidelines waiting for market to be better. We see that on a daily basis in agents like, oh, I'll eventually figure it out, or eventually market will get better. This is not getting any better. And I don't mean to like create fear. This is to help you prepare and give you the message that preparation now, preparation today means profit tomorrow. Waiting on the sidelines today means death tomorrow. That's that. I live by that. That's how I have ran my business for 10 years. You always got to be proactive rather than reactive. You're waiting on the sideline, waiting for the market to be better, have it better condition, or your next shiny object to come around. You will be reacting to no matter what it is, whether the market goes down or up, you will be reacting. So for those of you looking to grow your business, we are giving away our signature program on automating your lead generation and conversion through Facebook ads, messenger bot conversation flows, and follow-up sequences. For you could get 30-day free access to it. If you're hearing this, you can put it, either send me a message in any of the social media platforms or put it in the comments. You want access to lead gen secrets, I'll send you access, 30-day access to our program so you can implement that in your business. Daryl, it's been a pleasure, brother, getting to know you, having on the podcast, and I'm looking to collaborate with you in the future.
It's been a pleasure. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. Great to see you today.
Thank you.